Okay, this is Jason Onks. Today I'm here at the Blair School of Music, Vanderbilt University in Nashville, Tennessee, with Professor Jared Hauser, and he has graciously let me come into his office to do this video. So thank you, Professor Hauser.
You're welcome. Thanks very much for having me. And it's nice to talk to you all today. So we're going to talk about tuning on the oboe. And if I was going to give this segment a title, it would be "The Oboe Reed is Not a Tuning Slide." So this is actually a really important subject for young oboists and their ensemble directors alike. Very often when you're in band and you're tuning, or orchestra and you're tuning, your director may ask you to pull the reed in or out in order to make your playing sharper or flatter. However, this is not an ideal solution to the problem. So you might be asking, why not pull the reed in or out? It really does make the reed or the playing either flatter or sharper, but there's a lot of other little problems that causes. If you think about other instruments, like the flute, for instance, or clarinet, that always seem to pull their instruments in and out, or the parts of their instruments in and out for tuning, it makes more sense for them for a couple of reasons. One, say a flute, for instance, is a much larger bore, and it's a cylindrical bore instead of the conical bore of the oboe. And when you pull the head joint of the flute out a little bit, it makes very little difference to the inside of the instrument, but it does make it longer, so it'll be flatter overall, or pushing it in, it'll be sharper, but it's basically the same interior shape. It also doesn't really change the way that you generate the sound on the oboe. The reed is at the end of the bore on the top of it. For the flute, it's not really affecting the intonation from one note to another in the intervals. Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
It does.
Okay, good. So for the oboe, I mean, you all probably know you have an oboe reed, and underneath all this wrapping is a little tube. And the tube on the bottom is larger than the tube on the top. It tapers. And it's actually the extension of the bore. The bore is quite large at the bottom of the bell and gets narrower as you get to the top. And the bore at the top of the oboe should match the opening of the bottom of the staple, or nearly match it. And then it gets narrower at the top where the reed is tied on. So if you were to pull the reed out, it would make a little gap in the bore. Now, I was always told that this is why it's not a good idea to pull your reed in and out for intonation. The truth is that while that may affect some things adversely, it affects things like articulation, tone production, reed stability or articulation stability, more than it actually affects tuning overall. But what really changes is that rather than having the reed all the way in the bottom of the well and the bore of the instrument extending from the bell to the reed in one, what's a good way to say it? I've lost my track.
One smooth, continuous bore.
Continuous bore.
Right.
It has extended that, and then while you may be playing your B flat or A on the staff in tune, your A an octave higher is actually going to be flat because you've made the bore artificially long. And the higher and higher you play, there's going to be more of a difference in pitch between the lowest note on the oboe and the highest note you play. So rather than saying that it's in tune from here to here, for low B flat to B flat, you're extending it artificially this way, and your low B flat will be at one point, but your high B flat, you're going to have to really yank it up in pitch. So that's the real reason that pulling out your oboe reed is really difficult. Your high register is going to become flatter and flatter and flatter. As a solution to this, the best idea is to have a really high quality reed, really good equipment, and a really good oboe. Now, you may be thinking, oh, my entry-level oboe is not that great of an oboe. It won't make a difference in pitch or in sound or in articulation. That may have been the case 30 years ago. You know, it may have been the case before that when I started playing the oboe with my student model instrument. But today's oboes are really quite high quality, even the cheapest of oboes. A lot of that has to do with the way they're manufactured, with computerized equipment, the measurements, the way the instrument is bored and how the tone holes are drilled. They're really very good. Even the ones that are the least expensive and the ones that maybe you think are the least advanced, they're still very good oboes. So any small change that you make to the bore length is going to have an adverse effect. So rather than doing that, have a really high quality reed made by a reputable maker, if not yourself, and make sure that it's pushed all the way into your oboe, that is into the well. And I think you're going to have good intonation. And true, for you ensemble directors, if you're at the competition and your oboist is wildly out of tune, you may have to resort to pulling the reed out or making sure they have it pushed in all the way. But as a general rule, help your students make sure that they have good quality reeds and good quality instruments. You'll benefit from it and they'll benefit immensely.
Great. Thank you so much, Professor Hauser. That's a very good explanation and very needed for our young oboists and ensemble directors. So as an end note, so it seems like the better thing, instead of pulling out or trying to push in, whatever the case may be, is to have good reeds.
Yep. Remember,
and that takes time, you know, to find somewhere to purchase them. Everybody plays different, and everybody makes reeds differently. And so what I'm going to do is on my website, under my documents section, I'm going to put a PDF listing of a whole bunch of oboists that make reeds and their websites and phone numbers. And so you can download that document and just start trying reeds. If you buy one from a particular person and it doesn't work, that doesn't mean it's a bad reed or not a good reed. It just means it may not be good for that person. Everybody makes reeds differently and everybody plays differently. So go ahead and try 2 or 3, 4 different reed makers over time. And I think if you do that and you start having a good stock of reeds, then your oboe players will become better and they'll be able to play in tune better.
And remember that with reeds, usually the handmade reed by a professional oboist is a lot better than a machine-made reed that's mass-produced. And you can find a lot of those mass-produced machine-made reeds on the market, but really it's worth paying a few dollars extra for a handmade high-quality reed. It'll last longer too.
Great. So you can visit my website at www.onkswoodwindspecialist.com, and you can get the documents there. You can download the reeds and plenty of other resources for you. And thank you so much for your time today.